the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
We'll go to Charlie now in Illinois. Hi, Charlie.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I should give you a bit of background insofar as that I actually was brought up Catholic, homeschooling, going to a very traditional Novus Ordo, and even at the time was called the Extraordinary Form as well. And there are a lot of aspects of my upbringing which I am very thankful for. I'm still, even to this day, adamantly pro-life, though I don't know if you need to exactly pat someone on the back who doesn't want to terminate innocent life. But I wanted to talk to you. Unfortunately, my experience in that environment was actually very far from perfect, and maybe goes without saying, but I was exposed to a lot of what I would maybe call in hindsight, and it's such an overused term, but perhaps religious trauma. There were a lot of threats, spiritual threats, scrupulosity, and frankly, even perhaps it's a phenomenon on the internet of traditionalist Catholics, quote unquote, perhaps. I don't really know how people would define that, but of issues of racism and even anti-Semitism. And there was just a dark underbelly as well of mental health and just a lot of problems, at least growing up in that environment. And well, to get to the point, Patrick, growing up, I later found, I came to understand that I actually am predominantly attracted to members of the same sex. And frankly, didn't really know what to do for quite a while. Had heard a lot of, frankly, very offensive things said about people with that particular orientation. And this is back in the mid-2000s, so right around the time when so-called gay marriage was being legalized. And frankly, I had intended, I investigated courage, and I need to be clear as well. At least from my experience, I can't speak for everyone. It was not any kind of conversion therapy. I know the courage postulate is kind of considered somewhat controversial right now, but I was actually very fortunate with a lot of the people whom I met there. But I did notice that a lot of them were actually very, very unhappy. And
you mean the people that courage is serving, the people who are struggling for
very
chastity?
Much so.
Okay. Yeah.
Very, very much so. And basically the lifestyle that those good people are choosing to lead was very difficult, and was very not how I really wanted to live my life, if you will, if you don't mind me being frank.
Not at all.
And I think for me, one of the things that really was a turning point for me, which, and I should clarify right now, I observe I don't consider myself exactly, I'm very nuanced in the fact that I live as a gay man, and I observe I refuse to participate in Holy Mass, for instance. I will not receive with what the state my soul might very well be in. But I guess for me, my question is mostly related. I have family members who are clergy, and a very bullying older sibling is now in my diocese. And I even when I started to go into more of the the gay scene, I was very shocked by the number of Catholic figures whom I found there, so to speak. And I don't mean, and I.
Are you talking about gay priests? Is that what you're saying?
Priests, certainly members, not just members of the clergy, but also lay members as well. And obviously all that's pretty different, but I don't like going into details because I don't want to feel like I'm completely destabilizing the diocese.
Right. So this is really important what you're bringing up, Charlie, but I'm just looking at the clock and I want to make sure you don't run out of time. My impression is that you're heading in the direction of a statement or a question. I don't want to rush you. I just want to know what would you like to talk about regarding this issue?
Yes, my question is, for a lot of people, they might have quite a bit of an experience, for instance, where they feel very alienated in a deeply, in my case, deeply personal level, who grew up with kind of what would be considered the ideal Catholic upbringing for many outsiders.
Okay.
And I guess what would you have to say to those people who maybe are interested in navigating their way back to the faith, but don't always feel like they're equipped to do so, or that there's basically that hurdle to jump over, if you will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This sounds very difficult. And although I myself have never been in, I've never experienced the, as you put it, the trauma and the problems that you've gone through, I can try to imagine it, and I can imagine it would be very difficult. So I want to acknowledge that, number one. Maybe the best way I can proceed would be to ask you a question that will help me understand your situation better. What would it take to resolve this problem for you?
I think for me, there's just the square I can't circle, whereas I have this experience and I don't understand why I have it.
You're talking about same-sex attraction?
Specifically same-sex attraction,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know there's debates about that, but I can't, for no lack of trying and exploring even myself, I can't seem to change it, and I didn't choose it. And I'm deeply troubled that people are very judgmental and condemning, frankly, of people with same-sex attraction, however they decide to live.
I don't
but
condemn
I've just
you.
been more exposed to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't condemn you. I'm not here to condemn anybody. But so let me reiterate my honest question. What would it take to resolve this issue for you, to your satisfaction?
I must confess, Patrick, I don't know. I really don't. It's either I have to have it both ways, or I have to believe in something I really just don't believe in.
Mm-hmm. That's an honest answer. Seems to me that there are two major alternatives, which you yourself have already thought endlessly about, no doubt. One is that the church, the teachings of the New Testament, etc., would have to change, or you would have to fight against the tendencies and temptations that we all have. Mine are different from yours, but we all have them. I don't see a third alternative. I don't see a third way of resolving this issue for you or for me or for anybody that doesn't involve either the message of the church changes, in which case you're fine, or you change to conform to the teaching, the message of Jesus, the message of the church. Do you see a third option? Because I'm not sure if I can see one.
As far as a viable long-term third option, not particularly. I could see insofar as that one person would perhaps, in as good faith as they possibly could, and engage with specifically following their heart in that regard. And
you're being a bit ambiguous. I want to make sure I follow what you're saying. Yeah, be more direct. It's okay.
Okay. I could see someone living the homosexual lifestyle and asking for what benefits might exist, or rather, basically, living a homosexual lifestyle and asking God to straighten the crooked path, if you will, and then later abandoning it. But I don't consider that a particularly reliable alternative. And that's the frustrating thing about it, because it's an orientation that I didn't choose. And it's an isolating one, to say the least. And it's frankly one I don't know if there really are any viable opportunities for how to live one's life. The people who are living chastely, I admire them, but they're very deeply unhappy, and I'm not sure I want to emulate them. Does that make sense?
It does. Although I would push back a little bit on that and say I've known people who are incredibly happy, even joyful all the time, who are living lives of chastity, and it has been a big struggle for them, but they find the happiness that they're looking for not in genital activity, but in living according to what they recognize God calling them to, which is a life of chastity and purity. So I don't doubt that you've met people who are deeply unhappy. I'm sure there are many of them. But counterintuitively, my sense is that it's when one embraces the truth and the reality as it is and lives according to that, or strives to live according to that, where genuine happiness can really enter in. That kind of joy that we all want and will never actually get by things, whether it's sexual activity or entertainment or gadgets or possessions or money, all those things. Maybe you've read St. Augustine's Confessions, perhaps. If not, I'd recommend it. But he was beset with sexual sin for a long period of time. Now, it was heterosexual, but he gave in to his appetites with women. And he has this one line, he has many lines, but one line that I've always thought about, actually two, is one where he says that our hearts are restless, O Lord, until they rest in thee. And he was speaking from a place of trying to fulfill or satiate his desire for happiness with things and sexual pleasure, women, all the things that he thought would make him happy, none of them did. And then he has another line, which it's a bit longer than I'll give you, but you may have heard this before. The condensed version is where he says, Lord, make me chaste, but not yet. And that struggle, I mean, I can relate to that. Maybe you can relate to that too. The struggle in him where he's enjoying the pleasure and he doesn't want to give it up, but he knows that he should. He knows that he needs to, but he's not ready to relinquish it yet. And he talks in the Confessions about, he says, I was worried, Lord, that you would extinguish this sensual appetite of mine before I was ready to let go of it. So when I was praying that you would make me chaste, I didn't want you to do it quite yet. I think that's somewhat of a universal experience. So my thought, Charlie, would be, maybe that's the question, is that what needs to change? And then own up to, if you're going to go in the one direction, which is the church has to change, okay, how likely is that going to be? It's not going to happen, but that is one option. Another option is it possible that with God's grace that you can say no to your strong sexual appetites the way countless heterosexual people have to say no to their strong sexual appetites? I mean, I had no choice. God made me heterosexual. And I, like every other man or woman who is normal, have to experience the desire to fulfill that urge. And everybody has to say, am I going to live a life of chastity and purity, or am I going to give in to my bodily appetite? That's really, I think, the question that you are left with. And it doesn't mean that the longing goes away or the desire for the pleasure goes away, but how do you, in other words, do you become the master of this appetite, or are you mastered by it? Do you become its slave? A lot of heterosexual people become enslaved to their sexual desire. But you can rise above it. I can rise above it. We all can rise above it by God's grace, which is probably nothing you haven't already heard a million times over. But it seems like it's a worthy point for you to think about and pray about, don't you think?
I would.
I'm not here to condemn. I'm not here to judge. But I'm hopeful. I do have to take a break. Forgive me. But I hope that maybe there's something here, food for thought and prayer, Charlie.
No, I appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope you'll call me again. And if you haven't read the Confessions by St. Augustine, it's awesome. Also a book by Father Benedict de Groeschel. It's called The Courage to be Chaste. It's for everybody, heterosexual or homosexual. Very good book. I'll be right back.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.